Good morning. I know it's a Monday morning and we have to work. And what I do, I love what I do and I love to work. So anyway, I've been doing, this is the Animal Channel. This is All Power Group, Phoenix Animal. And what I've been doing is presenting different rescue centers that have some very unique care for the animals that they take in. And this is one that I found amazing, and you will see when I get going as to what and why I think this is wonderful. This is the story from Chipingali Wildlife Orphanage in Zimbabwe. Now, you might think, well, the United States must be the leader in what they do with, facilities for rescued animals. And some are, and I'll be doing those too. But what I've found very interesting, I did one on Bali, and now this one in Zimbabwe is different than what you would expect. And again, as I said, I'm going to tell you as we get along here. Anyway, the moon was still low when Tanash, a young sable antelope calf, arrived at Chipingali. He had been found alone, and no one wants to be alone, near a dry riverbed. His mother likely frightened away by poachers. Now, as an aside, I don't know why poachers have to do what they do. Animals are wonderful. They deserve the best of the best. And when someone is using wild animal issues for their own financial benefit, there's just no excuse. Too young to survive on his own, he trembled in the back of the rescue vehicle, legs unsteady, eyes wide with confusion and fear. The night air carried unfamiliar scents. For example, diesel. No one likes the smell of diesel fuel. Humans, and to them, they have such wonderful smelling capability. They can really sense everything in the environment. And if they're not used to being around humans, I've got to say, somebody with a great nose would say, hey, that's Jim. Anyway, but bottom line, the poor thing is shaking, doesn't know what's happening, is in the back of a vehicle that they have no idea what it is, why it is, and where they're going. Now, and sometimes gentle, he couldn't yet name. At Chipingali, the gates opened quietly. Hands moved slowly, because again, the animal is afraid. The animal doesn't know what's going on. It doesn't know why it's where it is. It has no idea, of course, that this is a life-saving, wonderful opportunity, but they don't know now. So you got to understand. Voices stayed soft because, again, they're saying, let's not make the poor animal any more stressed than they already are. No one rushed him. wrapped in a warm blanket, as you saw, Tanash was carried to the orphan enclosure where the sounds were different. Not the wild bush, but not threatening either. So already Tanash is realizing that although I don't know what this is, I'm sensing it's different than what happened, unfortunately, with the poachers, and the poachers potentially taking his mother. And, when they're like this, they need their mother, as we all do. I mean, when a baby's born, it's not, self-service. They have to be taken care of well, fed, held, bathed, you can name it, and it basically is what happens. It's not really that different with a baby animal. They got the mom, and the mom does what it needs to make sure their new baby is getting what it needs. And when poachers came on the scene, that stopped, I hate to say. He heard birds settling for the night, the distant grunt of a warthog, and the low, reassuring hum of caregivers who had done this many times before. I think when, in this case with the caregivers, if they're really good at what they do, and they've done quite a few animal rescues, they know how to do it right. And they know what to do their very best to make sure that the animal isn't any more afraid or nervous than if they were left alone in the wild. Anyway, Chappaqua was not a zoo. It was a place of what we would say second chances. And as we say in the world, in a lot of cases, if you've got a good person and you're around good people and you make a mistake, and I don't mean just a silly mistake, but you make a mistake that's pretty vital, most people would say, well, yeah, you messed up, but we're going to give you a second chance. And this is exactly what's happening now. A second chance for our little one. Over the next weeks, Tanash learned safety again. There you can see Tanash is a little bit bigger, and it was where they are kind of getting better and being around their surroundings. He drank milk from a bottle, which you're seeing here, held at arm's length so he wouldn't grow too attached to humans. That's key. They've got to be there. They want to be there, but they also have to be careful not to have it where, in this case, Tanash is saying, this is my new mom, or this is my new home. And you'll see as we progress and get to the end of why they have to make sure they're as neutral as they can be. Caregivers walked with him through the tall grass, teaching him how to forage. They showed him where shade lived during the hottest hours. And as you can see, that's why Tanash is under a tree. He's learned from his caregivers. Because remember, his mom's got taken and he didn't learn anything yet. So, you know, in Zimbabwe, it basically, you know, it's probably, you know, high temperatures in the you know, as we would say, heat of the day. So he was taught that when it's hot, as you can see what he's doing, he goes under a tree. And I think anybody, I mean, I know myself, I don't stand in the middle of the sun unless I have to. Anyway, and yes, shade does kind of help a little bit, but it's better than standing out in the sun. They also taught him how to freeze perfectly still when danger might be near. Because what happens is, you know, let's say there's an animal on the other side of the tree. I'm just using an example, you know, a distance away. And there's potential for that animal, if it's, or even a human, that they are taught, don't run away, don't run around, don't, you know, just stay still. And in some cases, they would not be discovered. And again, I'm not talking here in the rescue center, but, you know, when they're, you know, in their natural environment, which always has some risks, as you would expect. Nearby, other stories unfolded. A lion cub rescued from the illegal pet trade. And, you know, you look at this cute cub, and I mean, we all might say, boy, I would really like to have that little cub, which we would all know is not fair to the cub. And in reality, as long as the cub survives, he will turn into a big animal. And again, what they've done here or do here, they don't get too friendly with them because, again, they want to make sure they stay in their mind as wild as, you know, they should be. And, you know, these cubs are very commonly caught for illegal pet trade. You know, they learn from this whole process, they learn strength instead of fear. How would anybody, I mean, the sad part of, you know, talking about them taking animals for pet trade and so on and so forth, they sell them, and who knows what they do with them. And of course, when they get big, it's a problem. So again, this is a cub that in some respect lost his parents, and they're going to raise him from afar, you might say, and have it where they make sure that when he is ready, he can go back to the wild. Okay, here's an injured owl. And it's interesting, I live in Naples, Florida. It's southwest Florida. We're in what we call Golden Gate Estates, but it's not estates. It's just homes in the middle of the woods. And the neat thing is we have all types of animals here. And one of them is an owl. At night, I can hear the hoot of an owl somewhere in the trees around our home. But this is an injured owl. Its wing and feet, once shattered by a vehicle, strike, practiced silent flight, and a long recovery aviary. So, again, and this is the neatest thing about rescue centers. They don't say, well, no, we don't take birds. We don't take, no, they take injured animals, injured both in the sense of physically and could very well be very mentally hurt. And that would certainly be an example with Tanish of losing his mother. And not even in a natural way, in an artificial way that they would have no understanding. Now, you might say, ooh, I don't know, I love the lion cub, I love Tanish, but I'm not sure about a python. Well, remember, this is a wild rescue center, and then they don't have prejudices to say, oh no, we don't do snakes. No, if an animal needs help to get hopefully back on their feet, and not literally with the python, but at least where they're up to where they can live on their own and go back into the wild. Now, this python was, again, confiscated from smugglers. He now is basking peacefully under a Zimbabwe sun, slowly regaining its calm. Each animal had arrived broken in different ways. Each was treated with patience, respect, and dignity. And that's what we would do and should do for everybody that needs help. Anyway, months passed, rains returned, the bush turned green again. And this is what the neatest part, and it comes at the end, the neatest part of this whole issue is one early morning, Tanash was led beyond the familiar fence. There were no cheers, no cameras, just quiet observation. He stepped into the wild hesitantly, then paused, ears forward, nose lifted. For a moment, he looked back. And in their heart, even though they did everything they could to make sure that Tanash, when it was time, Tanash would make the decision that I'm ready to move on. I've been taught how to eat, to catch food, to stay in the shade, get water. And they're grown enough that they're beyond the little one stage, and they're ready to function. So anyway, Tanash looked back. The caregivers did not call his name. They did not wave. They stood still, allowing him the greatest gift Chapagali offers: independence. With a sudden burst of speed, Tanash ran, not away from Chipangali, but toward his future. His hooves drummed against the earth, and soon he disappeared into the tall grass, exactly where he belonged. back at the orphanage, the work continued. Another call would come, another animal would arrive, frightened and alone. And Chapin-Galley's gates would open once more, not as a place to keep animals, but as a place to return them to life. So, this is one of the neatest. They go in to be helped because they're found in a state that they can't and will not survive. They don't get too attached, but they make sure they teach them the things they need to know when it's time for them to leave. And the neatest thing, first of all, they're not within the facility. They're not put behind or put in a cage or anything like that. But they're again taught how to live again. Or in this case, to live for the first time. So, again, it would be one of those things where, finishing up here, it's one of those things where you'd say, the animals are loose within the facility or compound. They're subtly taught things they need to know. But the gate is always open. So when they feel they're ready, Tanaj said, I think I'm going to be fine. And I want to thank you for the second chance. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this morning. Although this page is not working as well as I want, as you can see where I'm talking about, I have two YouTube channels. One is the Phoenix Animal. The other one is Power Coffee News. Two, how would you say, I'm sorry. Excuse me, that's my fault. Anyway, they have the two channels that I have as what I would consider my passions: animals and coffee. And, get a chance if you can subscribe to whatever you might be interested in. It is appreciated. And, it's we're getting pretty close to Christmas, and I want to wish you and yours the very, very best opportunity. And we are sure praying that we're going to have a better 2006 than 2026 instead of 2025, which I got to be honest, wasn't probably the best in the world. So, thank you. Take care.